Hello, my name is Emily Say, and my project is called Artificial Minority. Our unconscious biases have been a problem in the past, present, and now the upcoming future. These biases, racial bias, gender bias, and age bias, perpetuate discrimination in facial recognition. This exhibition will bring public awareness to AI ethics, and museum techniques such as roleplay and workshop programming will provide ways to spark dialogue of algorithmic bias. So what is algorithmic bias? Is when a system favors or disadvantages a specific group based on demographics or phenotypes. Dr. Joy Bulawani found in her research that generally dark-skinned females are at disadvantage among facial recognition accuracy compared to light-skinned males. She said that the progress that was made in the civil rights era could be rolled back under the guise of machine neutrality. If we're not checking that algorithm could actually propagate the very bias so many people put their lives on the line to fight for. So what is facial recognition? It is an application that detects and classifies human faces. It first detects if a face is present, then it detects facial landmarks such as the shape of the cheekbones, and then it compares the facial landmarks to a unique face print of each individual. To get a better understanding of what people think about facial recognition, I asked 36 people how much they support facial recognition in healthcare, retail, and law enforcement. In healthcare, they do support the technology, whereas in retail, they don't support the technology. And in law enforcement, it is mostly ones and five where they don't support the technology in surveillance, but they're also unsure about that. My client is NIST. It is a government agency that do audit checks on how accurate and precise the algorithm are. And then my content sponsors are advocacy organizations such as Algorithmic Justice League, started by Dr. Bulawani, and also ACLU. SIA is a government agency that support law enforcement usage of the technology because it helps fight human trafficking and also find missing people, especially missing children. My venue is Cooper Hewitt. It is on the third floor with 6,000 square feet. And Cooper Hewitt was chosen because of their support for the museum and AI network. It is a year-funded long research where museum professionals gather together to think about how to use AI responsibly in the museum setting. My primary audience are high school students, college students, and adults. And Cooper Hewitt is a major supporter of student designers because they believe that design can empower people. Outside of the Cooper Hewitt building, you will see an open diary, and this diary is of Robert Williams. He was misidentified by facial recognition software and he was held in the jail for 30 hours, but he was not asked to verify his identity. And not only did the computer got his identity wrong, but also a police officer who trusted the accuracy of the system more than his own perception. Going to the third floor, you will see a content warning, and this alert visitors of some of the upsetting content in this exhibition, such as the case of Robert Williams. At the introduction area, you will see a timeline of facial recognition and how it has been improving from the 1960s through the 2020s. And when you trigger the red button, you will see kinetic typography, such as, for example, now going back to my presentation. Here you will see Adopt a Persona stations. These are digital kiosks where visitors take 4 personality quiz questions and then they get an RFID tag with a fictional occupation. This tag will have a occupation such as police officer, lawyer, educator, or journalist, and these were chosen because of previous cases where people have been impacted by algorithmic bias. So now you will enter with a poll of how much do you know about facial recognition, and one gate says a lot, the other gate says not a lot. With the fictional occupation, you will scan your RFID tag on these digital kiosks. There are 3 placed throughout the exhibition. And then you will read and reflect on a diary. And these are true stories of people who were impacted by algorithmic bias. Such as, for example, Daniel Santos, is a middle school teacher from Texas, and he was labeled by the algorithm as a unfit teacher, but he won Teacher of the Year award before and also Teacher of the Month. And he was able to sue because because this was threatening his employment, but he was able to let the people know that he is actually a teacher that helps a lot of students. And then you will reflect on his story with your fictional occupation, such as if you are a lawyer, you might feel this is a great opportunity, or if you're a fellow teacher, you might feel angry and this algorithm is unfavoring us. Now here we will hear short interviews about people who were affected by facial recognition, both positively and negatively. And when you plug in the megaphone outlets, you will hear these interviews. For the longer interviews, you can sit under the directional speakers and listen to them, such as, for example, you can listen about how Kashmir Hill was a journalist at New York Times. She did a thorough investigation on Clearview AI. It's a company that got social media photos, labeled them, identified them, and then sold this data set to the police and the law enforcement. And you can learn about how she was able to find out all the details in this investigation. Now here you will learn about Compass is used in the justice system. It's an algorithm that defined how risky a defendant is to reoffend. They found there was gender bias in this algorithm and also race bias. Every technology is a double-edged sword, said by Dr. Fei-Fei Li. With this quote, I was inspired to create the pro or con wall. And here you will they put each plaque on each wall, saying that a facial recognition application could be a pro for one person, but it could be a con for another person. So for example, in airport boarding, they use facial recognition to make the process quicker and more efficient, but also this could steps on people's right to privacy because people didn't know they could opt out of this biometric. For example, this Tawana Petty, she's been very vocal about law enforcement usage of facial recognition, but when she was at the airport, she didn't know that she was able to opt out, and also she didn't want to hold up the line because it became the social norm. Now here, people will learn about everyday activities and how facial recognition is part of it, such as on this public street, people will then point to the cameras, and this is a projected video. With the depth sensors here, they could get the visitor's pose estimation, and then they were able to respond on the projected video if the visitors are pointing at the right location or not. This is juxtaposed with behind the scenes of what the computers see. So here you will learn about China's social credit system, where people are labeled by a social credit score, so their public behavior is tracked. So if they forgot to pay a bus fare, then their social credit score could be lowered. And with a lower score, your privilege for transportation can be limited, and also even your employment could be threatened. Not only are we labeled by algorithms in China, but also in America, 1 in 2 adults is in the law enforcement face recognition network. Then we will learn about ACLU, where they talk about how facial recognition does not get our consent when used and how this is limiting our right to privacy. So with these backlit graphic films, the black box become more transparent and it becomes a glass box. And when you step on the trigger pads, you will activate the graphic films. So we will also learn about Big Brother Watch in London, UK, where you will learn about police vans that have facial recognition software on top, and pedestrians are checked if they're matched to a wanted person in the wanted people list. And then here you can see a 14-year-old boy being stopped by the police because he was mismatched in the software. Now here in this interactive timeline, we will trigger the red button and then we will see projected video on the walls and also the floor. And you will learn about biases in technology in each decade, such as in 2010s, we had ImageNet Roulette, and here artists Trevor Paglen and Kate Crawford, they had made a website where people upload a photo and people were being labeled by an algorithm. And they found that some people were being labeled derogatory terms, such as loser, sharecropper, or even killer. Now here we have a decorating a paper mask station where people would decorate the mask. They would choose a face filter on the table tablet and then they will go to the mirror and scan the RFID code and see themselves with the face filter when wearing the mask. We learn by doing this, we learn about Dr. Bulawani's story when she created this called Inspire Mirror, where people would choose a face filter of someone they aspire to and then see themselves in the mirror with the face filter. And she found out that during this project, she had to wear a Halloween costume white mask for the computer to even detect a face's presence. So we will learn through this activity how she felt and her quote, how much do you have to change yourself to fit in to the social norm will resonate with the visitors. At this bias busting area, you will take implicit bias tests and see what biases you have yourself. And also you will learn about different types of biases in the Monopoly of Biases game. This is a floor graphic with projected video and also depth sensors to track the visitor's motion in this game. So say you would have to then jump to roll the dice. And then if you land it on 3, for example, you will go to the area of similarity bias. And similarity bias is when we show preference for people who are similar to us. This occurs during the hiring process. So visitors will then have to name the top 4 common attributes during the hiring process. This is based on the Family Feud game. And then they can type the responses on this projected keyboard. And they will say someone may hire someone based on the same college they went to or having the same hobby. Now here in this area, we will see 110 skin tone shades on the push pins in each drawer. This is based on Pantone's skin tone guide. Visitors will match their skin tone to each push pin, and then they will pin it to the location where they are from. And we can see that the same area could have a variation of skin tones, and algorithmic bias that favors lighter skin is actually a global issue. Finally, here we have people at the end can share their own experiences with facial recognition on the megaphone, and also if they type their responses, they could see their projected responses on the floor. And then visitors could choose to join a workshop. It is a 10-minute activity with a maximum of 5 people. And here we learn about how to practice AI responsibly. So they are tasked to start an AI startup, and this will be facilitated by the Cobrahuas Education Program. And also, if responses are well, they can have an opportunity to do a summer internship at this high school program. This activity was based on the museum and AI network mentioned before, where visitors can think about how to ask themselves critical questions when using the technology, such as, for example, a team may be thinking of making an app that can show how many calories is in a meal in real time. So they will ask themselves questions like, are the training images have Creative Commons license? Like, do we have permission to use the images? And do we have a variation of cuisine and portion sizes? Are we doing this app? Does it make it riskier for people to reinforce their eating disorder? Are we getting feedback from multiple dietitians? So these are overall questions that people should ask themselves when using AI responsibly. At the exiting experience, they can recycle their RFID tag in these voting bins of how much do you support facial recognition on a scale of 1 through 5. And for the post-visit activity, then some exhibits are translated digitally on this website where people can talk about how much they support facial recognition. They can adopt a persona and read the diaries, and then they could do the pro or con and something pro or con of facial recognition application. They can read more diaries, play the Monopoly of Biases games. And this activity could be a activity workshop for teachers to do as a class. And also friends can talk about what they learned. And then I will end with Dr. Joy Bulamani. If you have a face, then you have a place in the conversation about AI. And before I end, if you want to see a walkthrough of the exhibition, here it is. And thank you for listening to my presentation. And yeah.